There are some days when we don't want to do anything, and there are some days when the darkness is just that little bit darker than we expected. But we show up. We do the hard things. Today is one of those days for me where I was not prepared for my anxiety and my depression to hit me so hard. I was not ready. It came out of nowhere. But I showed up. And I did the hard things because I know that my art is what saves me on days like this. Creating something from nothing is what saves me when the light is a little bit darker than I expected. We show up and we do the hard things because it makes us feel better. It makes us feel ready. Art saves lives. It saved mine, and I hope one day it can save yours. So if your darkness is a little bit darker than you expected, I want you to show up. I want you to set up your table, set up your tools, set up the things that make you happiest, and show up to the page and just play. Just explore with the things that make you happy, and you will slowly crawl out of that darkness. Even if it's not one of those days for you and you're just not feeling creative, just show up and start, because magical things can happen on a blank page if you just give it time. If you just give it time. Showing up and doing the hard things is what makes us passionate people. Just starting, just putting pen to paper, pencil to paper, watercolor to paper, it is all a process towards healing. So welcome to my journal page. First up, I am just using a graphite pencil to draw because I know that when I'm feeling the most vulnerable and the most anxious, drawing is something that takes my mind off that. And drawing creatures that sort of represent how I'm feeling is something that I've always done. I always draw a creature instead of a self-portrait because I feel like they are, I'm not even sure what it is, I just feel like they represent me much more than a self-portrait could. And this little guy totally represented how I was feeling. I felt topsy-turvy and tied up in knots. My brain was going a million miles an hour and I just couldn't figure out which way was up. So I drew it. And sometimes when we're not feeling it, but we are feeling emotional, we can create things that we absolutely adore. And this was one of those moments for me. And I'm glad that I showed up, even though I really didn't want to. So I'm using my Daniel Smith watercolors in Phthalo Turquoise, Quin Gold, and a little bit of Indigo, and that's it. Oh, and some opera pink for the cheeks, but hey, we all know that's what's on the cheeks. And I am just layering my first layer of color and just playing around with the two colors, the Phthalo Turquoise and the Quin Gold, and I'm layering them down in light washes, and then I let things dry and I come back in and I layer over again. That is the best way for you to get a more vibrant wash, is to do it in layers and layer up those colors. The same way when I'm talking about colored pencils, you go from lights to darks, the same concept with watercolors. I would lay down my first set of washes and then I would come back and layer down more where I wanted more vibrancy, more depth in my shadows, all that sort of thing. So I'm just using the Quin Gold for the arms and the Phthalo Turquoise for the main part of the body with a little bit of Quin Gold mixed in, and just giving those variances throughout the body and letting those colors work together. So as you can see there, that part has dried and I've come in with the muted gray. That's the acrylic ink, the Liquitex acrylic ink, and I decided that I wanted to create a dark bubble inside that twisted arm, because that's kind of how I was feeling on the day. I felt like I was stuck in a negative bubble, a bubble that I didn't know how to get out of, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get out of it that day. So I decided to draw the bubble that I was putting myself in, the bubble that I felt stuck in, and I felt like it was my own doing, hence why the arms are creating the bubble. So that's why I've dulled down that, sort of like a meaning like that. I've come in with my Tikky Graphic Mechanical Pencil in the 1.0 lead, so it's a little bit thicker than the 0.35, and I am just adding more details to the face. I wanted to add more details with graphic graphite before I went in with any liners or anything like that, just to darken those lines, because sometimes I really like the way watercolor and graphite mix up together. They give almost a accidental shading without trying too hard, and I was in the mood for some shading. So I am now coming in with my Prismacolour pencils, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. Not at the end, in the middle of the video. And I'm just doing circular motions, and I'm doing very light bits. Now I use my Prismacolour pencils to enhance what color is already there. I'm not trying to turn this into a colored pencil drawing, I'm just letting them be helpers. They're sidekicks when it comes to watercolor. When I talk about working with watercolor and Prismacolour pencils, the Prismacolour pencils are the sidekick and the watercolor is the hero in this story. So that's the best way I can explain it to you, is that the pencils are just helping the process. They're just giving a bit more vibrancy, a little bit more texture. I like the sort of texture that pencils give on this sort of paper. I really enjoyed making this illustration, so much so that I actually bought a blank Tomoe River book to do my illustrations in on the side for collage sheets, because I love how this turned out in the end, that I would love to do more illustrations in this sort of feel, this sort of technique, this sort of pencil, watercolor, that sort of thing. And the blue dots from my 7Cs crossfield are really annoying to edit out. So now I'm coming in with my Tikky Graphic 0.1, and I'm just darkening up the lines that I want to see there. I don't go over where the pencil is, because that pencil has created now a resist, and I don't want to ruin my pencil, but I only added a little bit of colored pencil in the darkened areas. But I do layer upon layer upon layer of these things to get my image to where I want it to. So if you want to do this sort of illustration thing, I urge you to work slowly and methodically, and to let things dry, come back, layer some more, layer some more. Don't just want to bang out an illustration in one sitting, where there is a time and a place for that. But I really worked at this little creature for quite a while, because it was calming to me. And as you can see, I'm coming back in with my pen and my colored pencils and just working with them hand in hand. So switching, once I thought there was enough colored pencil, come back in with watercolor, come back in. So I'm constantly switching up my medium and giving things the shadows and the shades that I want. If I'm not getting what I want, I'm coming in with a little bit of indigo there in those shadow areas, and all of a sudden that's got dimension, just with those little pops of that darkened color, of that phthalo turquoise and indigo mixed in together. So instantly my face got a little bit of dimension, just with some simple little washes of that dark color in above the hairline, in that little crevice where the nose is, above the eyes. All the places that I've told you where those shading goes, the shading bits go, is exactly the same as in this little illustration. Yes, this is a very stylized face, but the shading does not change. So I'm adding more Quin Gold to my arms, just to give them a bit more depth, and that's what I'm doing. I'm layering and layering, and I wanted to get really close up to the arm, but I couldn't, so I had to drag my book closer to me, which is very hard to film. But as you can see, with lots of different shapes of lines, and I talk about that in a moment, this is the best way to work on your line work, is to play with line variancy, not using different nib sizes, just using different types of lines. So I'll talk to you about that in a couple of seconds. And I'm just writing the word fear in some dodgy script, because this day was all about me fearing something that I couldn't control. And that was what the whole page was about. Feeling conflicted, feeling topsy-turvy, and just feeling fear. Good morning, my inkies. It is the next day, and I was going to film probably closer to the evening when I was doing a little bit of line work on that page, but I just wanted to sit on my bed and just do it in the silence while the kids were occupied in the lounge room, and I just didn't feel like filming. So the page itself looks like this, and I'm going to chat a little bit about pencils and watercolor. I will do a more like technique focused one, not even technique, I don't like those words. I'm not a technician, I'm not. It's just not how I operate. I am a creative thinker. I am a feel my way artist. I do what I love. I experiment and I play, and that's how I work out what I like, what I don't like, and then I try in my very best way to show you how I do that, which is kind of hard when you don't have a recipe for creativity. So as you guys saw, with this little creature, I used watercolors, and then I also came in with pencil. Now I'll probably talk a little bit about it in the voiceover. I always seem to rehash stuff that I talk about here in the voiceover because I'm always thinking around the same lines. So when I talk about working with watercolor and then working with Prismacolor pencils, I really do mean that I put my watercolor down first, and then once that has dried, I then come in with not watercolors. I then come in with my Prismacolor pencils to enhance what I've got sitting there. I normally don't stray very much from the color palette that's already been chosen with my watercolors. I will pick pencils that will enhance what is already on the page. So picking a grass green pencil to darken up areas that are already dark with the watercolor is what I'm talking about. So I came in with the cool gray and the green pencil in these sorts of areas that I wanted to be darker, but I don't have the want to darken them too much with watercolor. I feel like I have a bit more control with my colored pencils, and I don't, let me pull up a page at the back. So I don't come in and shade really hardly. So as you can see, I'm putting quite a lot of pressure on my page right there. I don't come in like that, and that would be a mistake if I did try and do that, because then you're going to cover up the watercolor that's underneath, and you're also going to make it a really hard surface to do anything else unless you put a coating over it, like matte medium or workable fixative or something like that. Because the Prismacolors are wax based, you're creating a resist. Wherever you put that pencil, you're going to create a resist, and that is not just with watercolor, that will also be with your liners as well. So I do like coming in with my pencil and doing light. I put my hands back here because if you get closer, it's a bit harder to go light. You're always going to have more pressure when you're holding your pencil so close to the tip. So if you see, I'll always come in with my hands back here because I'm trying to be loose. I'm not trying to control it too much. I want to have a little bit of control, but I also want to have a very light hand. And so all my weight and my pressure is being held up here and not right down near the base of my pencil. And I always work in circular motions because I find that creates the most harmonious sort of look. And you can put a little bit of pressure on if you want, but I'm also not pushing very hard, but I find that I can control my lines a lot better that way. I can get the right sort of texture that I'm after, that sort of thing. So this is pushing really, really hard, and then this is just shading lightly in circles. And then I will also go from light to dark. When I do our shading videos and when I talk about how I do things, I will always work light to dark. No matter the medium, you can't go back from dark. If you pick black, there's no going back from black. It's a lot of work to go back from black. That is unnecessary. So you want to go from your lightest colors and then build up your layers so that you can see through the light layers. You can really get some beautiful gradients happening when you're working from light to dark, and then you can find what you're happy with. So where is she? She's here somewhere. So with these pencils and things, I will lightly come in, and I'm not doing very much. I'm not putting in huge amounts of effort. I'm working lightly, I'm working slowly, I'm working methodically in round circles until I get the look that I'm happy with, and then I'll move on. I don't when I talk about working with watercolor and pencils, I'm usually using my pencils in a way to enhance what is already there with watercolor. If there's a section that I think needs to be brightened up, then I'll come in with a color that is similar to what I'm using with my watercolor and just enhance that color a bit more with my pencil. And doing the same sort of thing, shading in a circular motion with my hand back here so I'm not putting on too much pressure, because I still want to see that watercolor effect. Otherwise I'd just do a colored pencil drawing. So you saw, like with the cheeks, opera pink and yellow make that really beautiful vintage peach that I really do love. And then because I wanted to add a little bit more color, but I didn't want to do it with paint because I didn't want to ruin what was already there, I just came in with my fluoro pink pencil, and again, not pushing very hard. This is where I try and find the green. There we go. So this is such a beautiful color when it's lightly applied. It is just a hint of color and it's very bright. So it will really brighten up the pink that's there without really changing the hue. It just sort of makes it a bit more vibrant, and that's what I was looking for. I didn't want to change because the color that I'm showing you here, I know this is a bit random, but you guys wanted to hear my thoughts and stuff about this sort of thing. So I thought that I'd pop in here because the part of the video I actually sped up quite a bit so that I could take the time to explain a few things to you without feeling like I've got to upload a 1,000-minute video. So I'm going to get my portable rainbow set because both colors are in this little set. I'm going to have to refill. I know I've got a spare opera pink here somewhere, but I'll have to refill that soon. So I will go in with opera pink, and you can see that that is quite a bright pink. As you guys know, that's why I love it, that's why I use it. And then I'll come in, this is Quin Gold down here, and I will add the Quin Gold to it, and I just love how it turns into like a almost peachy pink. If that looks like it's got too much yellow in it, so you're going to add a little bit more pink and then just get the right hue, and that will create like a beautiful blush tone. So if you've got the portable rainbow set and you want sort of like a flush tone, my favorites to use is the Quin Gold and the opera pink together to get you that sort of peachy tone. And I think there is Quin Coral, which is one of my newer colors when I last did that. My last order was Shandra. So that's sort of like a more deep version of Quin Coral. So if we watered it down, it would come sort of close to what we just did, but obviously that yellow tinge in it is from your Quin Gold. But I really loved how these look together, and I use it quite a lot because I obviously mix the two colors in my journal pages when I'm doing backgrounds and things, and then I discovered that I really loved how it looked together and started using that for my sort of face accents, cheek accents. It's a really subtle, beautiful way to get that, but sometimes I don't want to disturb what's already been layered down, like with my shadows and stuff. I didn't want to play with that just in case the watercolor reactivated. So my best way to get a bit more vibrancy in there without disturbing the layers I've already put down is to lightly come in with some colored pencil. Now, if you're going to shade and watercolor and all that before you do your line work, as you saw in my video, the process part of it, I did color first. I drew with my Neon Pink normal Staedtler pencil, and then came in with my 0.1 Tikky Graphic mechanical pencil because I do like how thick it is, and this has got a really soft lead. So my hands were quite shaky to begin with. I wasn't having a great mental health day yesterday, but I knew that I needed to push through. I was having a major creative rut, and it was really getting to me. So at the start of the video, you may not even know it because I sped it up, my hands were shaking like crazy, and so I switched to this pencil because I liked liked the feeling of it. It was very calming, and it was very helpful in that process. So I did come in first with lead pencil, and I sometimes love doing that because the lead pencil will mix with the watercolor and give you really subtle shadows that you can't really, you can recreate it, but with a bit more like effort, and I'm lazy. And when we're talking about line work, so I will do a line work heavy video for you guys. I will make that a priority because line work is something I use to calm my stresses when I'm feeling depleted, when I'm feeling really anxious inside, when my head is spinning with 50,000 ideas or 50,000 stresses. I will sit down and do line work, which is why there are so many leaves in this picture, because I was so up in the air emotionally yesterday that I just went, right, I need to go take some time out and I need to go and do some line work. And you guys have seen me draw these leaves before. That's why I didn't mind doing some of them off camera, because it would be a stupidly long video if I sat here and drew all the leaves on camera. Now I know that my pen is in here because I took it to the nail place late at night. Hubby forced me to go get my nails done last night because I had been putting it off all week, and he's like, nope, that's right, late night shopping, you're going now. So I actually took this with me, and while I waited, I drew the lines. Now, something that I like to do that's not quite line work, but it is at the same time, is I like to experiment with line thickness within my drawings. And you can see that there's sketchy lines, there's thicker lines. With the hair, I've made thick pieces in here. I'm gonna zoom in a bit for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. It'll be a little bit easier for you to see what I'm babbling on about, and I hope that I make sense. So when you're wanting to do a sketchy character or something, don't just focus on perfect, straight, thin lines. Sometimes my most favorite sketchy drawings or my most favorite creatures are when I experiment with line thickness and variation. So coming in here and putting extra thickness into pieces of the hair and extra dark lines for my shadowing really created some sort of a spark of interest in me. I realized when I started sketching, once I thought I was done. Also, side note, if you're going to use colored pencils on your drawings before you line, don't go all the way up to the very, very line that you're about to outline, because your pen is not going to like the wax-basedness of your Prismacolor pencils. So this is, I'm talking from a wax pencil point of view here, because pencils and ink pens do not want to be friends. They don't. Your pen will start skipping, it'll clog your nib, and then it will just, I've ruined many, many fine liners in my time trying to line over colored pencil. Just avoid it. It's not worth it. It's not worth your supplies, especially if you're spending, you know, $6 a pen and you ruin it with your colored pencils. So I will come in and shade very close to the line, and then I'll come over and outline so that I can still do my pencils first and not worry that I'm not going to be able to outline. Or if you don't want to worry about that sort of thing, then outline first and then do your color. But if you're going to do watercolor, make sure your pen is not going to bleed on you. So thickness in lines, so you've got really thick lines in here for the outline, and then really scribbly, thin, sketchy lines. This all creates a texture, it all creates interest, and really trying to play with your line thickness, your depth, the type. So having really bold lines around here, and then coming in and sweeping around with your pen lines for the hair. And then the ears here, I've actually started pulling lines from the same center point and just pulling outwards. So that will create a black thickness at the top of the ear, and then you're going to come down and have all these single little sketchy lines on the side of the ear, which creates a shadow at the same time as being visually interesting to look at. So I want you to play with lines and not just do straight, simple, like, where am I? What can I show you that? So when I do your line drawings for collage sheets, my lines are very crisp and clean, and I don't experiment with line thicknesses because I need them to be at the best level they can be, especially if I'm going to be scanning them for your collage sheets. So I don't usually do a lot of thin line work because it gets lost in the digital process. So
if I want to do crisp, clean images for you guys, especially if they're going to be black and white, I don't do any fancy line work. I just literally make sure my lines are clean, simple, thick, and all that sort of stuff, and very black, so that my scanner and my editing and all that. But I'm going to do a video on that. But when I'm working in this sort of way, this is where I play. Now, I did all of this with a 0.1. So I didn't change up my nib size. I didn't get like a really thick brush pen, because I feel like sometimes the bigger your nib, the more hard it is to control where your pen's going. I can build my thick lines with repetitive strokes in the same place, whereas if I make a mistake with, say, like a my pencil case is gonna fall. Let me grab it. Oh, come out. So I've got a 0.3 here, which is also not too bad, and like a brush tip. Now, my brush tip isn't quite pointy anymore because I've used and abused it a bit, but I know that if I make a thick line with a big nibbed pen like this, it could be game over, and then I'd spend the next 10 minutes doing damage control for a line that I didn't want there. If I make a wrong step with a 0.1, fixing that is as easy as putting a couple more lines in its place to make it look like I totally meant that. So I do use the same nib, but I just really vary up my lines. I will have thicknesses and thin places. I will work with doing them in the same place, so just play. I know a lot of you who are just getting into sort of drawing and all that sort of stuff are really sticklers for having really precise, clean lines. And as you can see, my lines aren't clean. They're not perfect, but that's my style. That's where I love to be. I find beauty in the non-perfect. Like even my stripes on his belly are just literally me going like this, but a few times to get that sort of blackness of a stripe. And there is what am I talking about? Like a stripe without actually sitting there and physically drawing a stripe. So obviously my little fur lines are very stylized, very simple, and I did come back in and sort of thicken up some of the arm lines because I felt like they were just too thin and too sort of, considering that I did so many line variations on his face and everything like that, I needed to sort of bring that element into the rest of my sketch. Otherwise, this is going to look like it was forgotten, whereas I put all this time and effort into this little section that the rest of the sketch. So I haven't finished his body down here. You can still see that my lines aren't as defined, and I'll need to come back in with my pen and sort of reiterate those lines, which I will do either on camera or off camera. I am going to be using my sprocket for the rest of the page to give you guys a little bit of a look. This was another request, was to use my sprocket within the pages of my journal. So I will do another video using this, but I thought I would incorporate a few of the ideas that people have asked me to do in the Facebook group. I did put forth a question, like I sometimes feel the need to have a few ideas sitting in the pot so that I can go, okay, they want to see this, they want to see this, but I don't want to have just strict, you know, 1 or 2 ideas left, where there might be a day when I don't feel like doing a marker video, or there might be videos that take me longer to film and longer for me to work out how I'm going to put across a lesson to you guys. When I teach, and I use that very, very loosely, I do sit down and think, how can I easily get the information that's swirling around my head out to you guys, that you can process it in an easy fashion. It takes the daunting nature away from it, and it makes it digestible, especially if you're still very, very new to this whole thing and you see something like this and go, well, shit, I can't do that. I really, really want to try and make it easy for you and make it so that I almost give you a creative permission slip to try, because sometimes trying is the best thing that you can do. Yeah, you're gonna fail. I promise you, you will. And you'll probably fail on the first go and the second go and maybe the 20th go. But trying is what it's all about. You have to try in order to get better. You have to try in order to progress. It's just the way it is, okay? You're gonna suck for ages. I'm gonna suck for ages. There are body positions that I need to practice that I'm gonna suck for ages. But we do it because we love what we do. We have a passion. If you have a passion for it, you will be okay with sucking. I, on the other hand, don't feel okay with sucking, but I feel that I'm on a different platform. Like, I am on show to everyone, so sucking is not what I can do, because then how am I gonna show you that I suck? Because that's not going to help you. But at the same time, it also humanizes me when you think, you know, Courtney can suck, so I can suck too. That's kind of where I'm going. So I've just spent 20 minutes talking, and oh my God, I need to do the rest of the video in speed. But I just wanted to pop in and chat to you about line work and experimenting and using your pen to create textures and looks and scribbly lines and thick lines, and really, really pushing your drawings. Do a whole heap of drawings and experiment with line. Do a whole heap of drawings and use your watercolor and your pencils and then play with line. Don't just do one, do many, because that's the only way you're gonna work out what you like. That's the only way you're gonna work out what sort of style. A lot of people have been asking me to do a video on style, and that one's going to be a hard one to do. I need to think about that one before I just rip raw into it. Style is a huge topic, and it's an overrated topic. Everyone thinks that style is the be all and end all, and I don't. I honestly don't. I think practice is the be all and end all. And showing up, I literally did not want to do a single thing yesterday except hibernate in my room in the dark. But I got up and I showed up, because showing up is what makes you do it. Do the hard things. I did the hard thing yesterday. I got up, my hands were shaking, I wasn't in the mood. I was an emotional basket case yesterday for reasons unknown. I hadn't had a depressive, anxiety-ridden day in a long time. I'm probably have been so busy I haven't had a chance to let that gate open. But yesterday, that black dog bulldozed me like no man's business, and I wasn't ready for it. Like, I was not ready. I didn't have any of my guards up. I was just bulldozed by it. But I got up and I showed up, and I actually adore this little creature more than anything I've done in a really long time. And that's because I pushed, and I felt like I was creating something from emotion. A lot of the times when I create from emotion, whether it be happy or sad, anxious, depressed, I always seem to love it a little bit more, and it always has meaning behind it. And you'll obviously hear more about the meaning of color choices and stuff when I've done the voiceover, so you might have already heard it already, but I'm not going to go through it now because I've talked enough and my battery's going to die on me, and I haven't even finished my bloody page. So what I'm going to do is, off camera, I am literally going to finish these leaves, because I don't think you guys need to see me draw leaves. You saw me draw butt tons of leaves on this page. It's literally the same design because I love how it looks, and it was calming and stress-free. I am going to come in with some fountain pen ink in a minute. Well, when I come back, it'll be in a minute, and I'm going to actually color the leaves a burnt red, and that's to signify all the leaves that I walk past on my walk to school. They're nice, beautiful shades of red and orange, but I think the red against this sort of turquoise green color. Again, I am using the same color palette as I did in that planner spread, so I'm going to quickly pull that out for you guys so that you know what I'm talking about. And everyone has loved it. So these colors that you see here are these colors here, and they are Quin Gold, Phthalo Turquoise, and the pink shade is Opera Pink. And then I did add a tiny bit of indigo when I wanted to get into my shadowy places. That's it. I literally used those colors to do this illustration and just varied up the shades, mixed so did a little bit of, you know, Phthalo Turquoise, a little bit of Quin Gold. Then when I was doing the shadows, it was a little bit of turquoise with the indigo, and just played with the colors, adding the turquoises into these areas, which then greens up the Phthalo Turquoise and almost makes it like a what's this color? Diopside green, very, very similar, but it just brightens up that turquoise and brings out more green with the yellow shades, if that makes sense. So that's it. That's all I'm gonna do now. I'm now gonna speed through the rest of this video so that I'm not uploading for eternity tomorrow. But I hope this has sort of helped you in some way. Pop your comments down below if you have more questions to ask me, or if it did help you, I need you to tell me that that helped you in some way, shape or form. Or if you want me to go a bit more in depth when I do my next video. I obviously will go in depth, more in depth, but if this information is the sort of information that you're seeking, then tell me please, because I'm still feeling my way as a teacher loosely, very, very loosely, as a creative path maker, should I say. I'm still working out what information is important for you guys to know and what information is just me talking to hear the sound of my own voice. So I need you to tell me, is this the sort of information that you want to know? Is it going to help you? Did it help you? That sort of thing. I need to know these things in order to get more in-depth videos for you and more help and targeting areas that you feel are more important to know than just watching me do a process video. So right, that's it. I'm going to do these leaves, get my paint, and then I'm going to print some of my photos out from my sprocket, and then I'm gonna add them into the bubble. All right, I love you. Continue on with the video.
So we are coming in with a De Atramentis fountain pen ink in the color Bordeaux, and I actually bought this just to actually paint with, not to use in a fountain pen, and it was the perfect shade of red, exactly what I was looking for. And I'm just painting those leaves. There are a lot of leaves. It did take me a while, so I didn't show you all of the painting, but I basically was just using the same color. I do pull out a half pen and I'm just testing the color next to it to make sure that I'd made the right choice, and I did. I really loved the way that the fountain pen ink looked, and I knew I made the right choice. So I was just checking if I'd made the right choice, which is why I put the color next to it to go, oh, did I pick the right one? But I did. So now I've grabbed my sprocket, all the leaves are painted, and I am just printing out some photos. Even though I printed one out of myself, I didn't actually use that picture. I grabbed pictures of my kids, and I grabbed a picture of hubby. Now I chose to print them in black and white because I have told you guys this before. Printing my photos in black and white when I've got such a bright colored artwork around it is a choice that I make, a deliberate choice, because I don't want the colors of a photo to clash with the artwork. And in the picture of Elijah here, he's actually got rainbow suspenders on and a bright colored shirt because it was for a circus disco. Now if I let that photo happen in color, it would have competed with my artwork, and I didn't want that. So making my photographs black and white means that they're going to work hand in hand and they're not going to work against each other visually. So I'm just grabbing the actual Sprocket app itself. Is actually quite easy to use, and also it has some really nice filters. I haven't used any filters in this. I'm just checking. I was looking for a certain photo and I couldn't find it, but I found it in the end. The app itself, the Sprocket app, is super easy to use, super user-friendly, and the filters in it are quite nice. I do have a paid app that I use for filters and things like that, but I find that I don't need them when I'm using the Sprocket app. I've actually done colored filters on a couple of my photos in the Sprocket app itself and have been really happy with how they've turned out. It is a really quick process printing from the Sprocket. I did run out of paper before I printed Boo's photo, so I do stop filming and go grab some new paper, but I decided that I wanted to use the Sprocket because they were such tiny little photographs and they were sticky back, so I decided to use those instead. So that is what I did. I opened it up, put some new paper in, and printed the picture of Boo. So I'm now just cutting around those photographs. I don't want them to be squares. You guys know that I have a thing with that, and I wanted them to line the bottom of my creature's arm. I wanted to say my arm because like this is a self-portrait to me. So I wanted it to feel like I was also giving them a hug almost, even though my bubble is dark. I know that in the corner of my bubble, in the corner of my darkness, there is a little bit of light, and that light are my family members. More my hubby than anything else, because I know that when I'm at my worst, he is always at his best, and he is always, you know, that safety net. So I just wanted to put them inside my bubble to remind myself that they will always be in my corner regardless of how I'm feeling. So the majority of this video is about the illustration and talking to you about the illustration. So I kind of kept everything else simple, and I've just outlined the photos of my family members and added some writing, and the page was pretty much done. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Please pop your comments down below. Like I said, I need to know that what I'm teaching you is valuable. I want to know that this is helping you on your creative journey, because I really need to know that I'm doing the right thing by you guys. I hope you have a fabulous weekend, and I want you to show up to your page. Thanks guys. Bye.